And of course, at issue Section 172 on the jurisdiction of the Pietermaritzburg High Court to stay an order by a constitutional court on the 15-month sentence handed down to the former president and a stay of the execution of arrest being sought. And the Pietermaritzburg High Court, Judge Mnguni, saying that that decision will be announced on Friday at 11:30 a.m. Let's speak now to SABC News senior political reporter Samkele Maseko, who is in Pietermaritzburg. Samkele, all of these events, of course, occur after the ANC-NEC meeting made known its feeling and sentiments around latest events. The Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte speaking about that, and one of those issues was that issue of human shields, which is what has been categorized as what Edward Zuma was saying, that nobody will take the former president and remove him to prison unless it's over his dead body.
Yes, indeed, so that briefing, which was covered by our colleague in Johannesburg, the ANC Deputy Secretary General was speaking on those matters that they, as the NEC, had to stand up and see and try to mitigate the various issues that are raising out of Nkandla, as there were people who were then saying that they would defend the former president with their bodies, and the ANC had to make sure that there's no blood shed there in Nkandla. Like the Marikana massacre, you saw that General Mkhwanazi, the police commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal, was pretty much hands-on, the provincial commissioner. We also do know that the president, through the words of Jesse Duarte, the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, was head-on. But where we are here in Pietermaritzburg, we were listening to the court case of former President Jacob Zuma, brought by his legal team for an interdict to stay the execution of his arrest, where Advocate Thembeka Ngcukaitobi, representing the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, argued that this particular court does not have the necessary jurisdiction to ventilate this matter, and it should go back to the Constitutional Court, and that Mr. Zuma knew very well that the Constitutional Court had the powers to suspend his arrest, but he opted not to use that particular platform, and the Constitutional Court knew it very well. He goes further to say that the ConCourt knew that it had the meritorious power of suspension of the order, but it did not do it. Mr. Zuma also knew this and never made an application to the Constitutional Court. He also further says that they are dealing with the repetitive and recalcitrant lawbreaker in the form of Mr. Zuma, that is Advocate Thembeka Ngcukaitobi, representing the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. Then you have, on the other side, Advocate Dali Mpofu, representing former President Jacob Zuma, in saying that this court does have the necessary powers to ventilate this matter on the virtue that the former president resides in KwaZulu-Natal, and this court has the power to overturn a decision of a higher court in the form of an interdict against an arrest.
Samkele, obviously we don't want to prejudge what is likely to happen, but we saw the Advocate du Plessis on behalf of the foundation saying the court should basically be dismissing this case now on the basis of that jurisdiction, that has never happened before, that a high court pretty much second guesses an order of a constitutional court, where there is no single case of a high court interdicting the orders granted by the Constitutional Court, to quote him directly. And of course, Advocate Dali Mpofu saying that Judge Mnguni himself would be erring by not finding in favor, because he will be throwing his hands, or washing his hands off the former president, was how he said it. People are now, obviously, from where we are sitting, having watched this, going to try and speculate on why there is such a long time, if I can put it as that, for the judge to make his decision, which is, he said he'll make his announcement on Friday morning. Is this indicative, again I say, I know it's speculation, of just how complex this matter is? Because, as it was said over and over again, there is no precedence.
This matter is very complex on a political aspect, on the virtue that the former president still yields a lot of political power in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. You had the ANC downplaying the issue of the plight of this particular issue on the province of KwaZulu-Natal and the number of people who converged upon Nkandla to support former President Jacob Zuma. But also you saw Senior Counsel Advocate Dali Mpofu saying that if the judge were to take a decision that he does not have the necessary power and jurisdiction to basically interdict the execution of the arrest of the former president, he would be preempting the outcomes of the Constitutional Court sitting on Monday, which will sit for the rescission of this particular judgment that was given by the Constitutional Court that the former president must be incarcerated for a period of 15 months. Advocate Thembeka Ngugaitobi arguing further that with Mr. Zuma, he's a reluctant individual who is a constant lawbreaker who even till today is breaking the law. Advocate Thembeka Ngugaitobi went further to say the letter issued by the state attorney on behalf of the Minister of Police and the Police Commissioner Kehlas Tole, that letter was nonsensical, as former President Jacob Zuma is now requiring the assistance of the police to continue with his law breaking. Advocate Thembeka Ngugaitobi goes further to say that if this interdict is granted by Judge Beksisa Mnguni, it would mean that he is also aiding and abetting the continued law-breaking shenanigans of former President Jacob Zuma.
There was a very interesting exchange, Samkele, between the advocate Dali Mpofu and Judge Mnguni on the issue of appeal vis-a-vis rescission. And Advocate Mpofu belaboring the point that it must be thought of philosophically and at some point, using interchangeably, which is quite interesting. And it was obviously by mistake that he said rescission, appeal, but he was trying to make the point that the judge's approach ought to be irrespective of these two. I found that very confusing and convoluted, but are you able to sum up for us what it is that he was trying to say?
Essentially, what we got out of this particular case is that Judge Beksisa Mnguni did not want to go into the merits of the rescission case that will take place on Monday. He constantly told Dali Mpofu, Senior Counsel Advocate Dali Mpofu, that those particular matters of a rescission and the nitty-gritties of the case will be ventilated at the Constitutional Court on Monday. Even Thembeka Ngugaitobi, Senior Counsel, in his 45-minute presentation, which was very much succinct and to the point, did say that this court does not have the necessary jurisdiction, and this particular interdict of a suspension of or a stay in the execution of the arrest of the former president should not be coming to this court. He constantly went to the background of the case of how former President Jacob Zuma continuously disobeyed the Constitutional Court, where Advocate Dali Mpofu says that there was no fair trial when the former president was convicted and sentenced to 15 months imprisonment. Advocate Thembeka Ngugaitobi went to town in explaining that the former president had two occasions in which to depose responding affidavits to the Constitutional Court, when the State Capture Commission of Inquiry first filed an application to the Constitutional Court compelling the former president to appear before the commission and to answer all questions. The former president refused to do that, even when the State Capture Commission of Inquiry went to the Constitutional Court to seek an order for the incarceration of the highest punitive measure of 2 years against the former president. Former President Jacob Zuma opted not to file any responding affidavit. So Judge Beksisa Mnguni did not want to go into the meat and to the nitty-gritties to further convolute himself into the merits of the case of the rescission, which will take place on Monday.
All right, thank you very much. Samkele Maseko, my colleague who is in Pietermaritzburg.